Welcome back to Here with Goldberg. Today I'll be talking about the rise and fall of Gonzalo Lira. So, a very uninteresting story. Many years ago, people told me he was trashing Goldberg in his comment section because I was against PUAs. I said they were frauds, and he was pushing some PUA stuff. But then, a couple years in the future, he was emailing me asking for a collab. I never took him up on it. Maybe I should have. But I never found Lira to be very informative, although it was interesting to see all the iterations he went through throughout his life based upon the stage of it. So you can look into Fax Hunter. He's got some good mini documentaries talking about who Lira actually was. But of course, there was Lira, the best selling author. Then there was Lira, the successful filmmaker. Gonzalo, the distinguished libertarian economic writer, predicting imminent collapse, the expert on feminism and picking up young college-age women with Red Pill Game. There was Gonzalo Lira, the passport bro, moving to Eastern Europe for fertile grounds and better women. Then you had the geopolitical analyst, and the final arc was the prisoner of conscience. I should note that I don't take much of what he said about himself. I'd say I don't believe in 50% of what he said about himself due to the evidence out there and just having known people from this part of the world, Chile, South America, the bravado, the embellishments is very central. But some would say that's irrelevant. And it is irrelevant. What matters is that he believed these things about himself, and more importantly, he was able to persuade others that they were true. This is an incredibly powerful skill. You see, we can become conceited into the whole here the facts mentality, but the facts don't sell. You have to be able to market an idea, an emotion of sorts, and then you will win by leaps and bounds. In fact, there are some allegations which may be trumped up that he was an abuser, he was a predator. Whether those are true or not, when they've been presented to those who are supporters of his, their response is, no, no, it doesn't matter. He was fighting Zelensky. And so that's the mentality. You've seen it throughout politics, media, the internet. As long as you have a following, you have clout, and people find you likable to some extent, then your conduct is secondary to you fitting a specific narrative they want to believe in. And that is absolutely something that you can garner from him and his life if you want to be successful in business or politics, anything really. It did stand out to me when he was making the transition from CRP to the geopolitical analyst. He underwent this total change in presentation. So the old CRP videos, he would shoot from these strange camera angles as though he wanted to give the impression that he was the subject of a documentary. Though I think ultimately it came out that he was doing all that camera work himself, and he's wearing the suit, clean cut. So that's, psychologically speaking, if you've looked into the research, that gives the notion that you have authority, whether or not it's true or backed up by anything. But here's this guy, and then when he is retiring CRP as a mask, he starts growing out his beard, wearing these extra thick prescription glasses, has a longer hair, the baseball cap, and he's dressed like a middle-aged divorcee living in a shoestring apartment who, to save money for alimony, he's painting his own walls. It was just totally bizarre, but I think it is reflective of the fact that he was trying to give off a particular vibe. Now, who knows? Maybe he, in fact, did go through a divorce. Maybe it was a rough time in life, but it was just striking because many of these individuals, they sell the red pill lifestyle, but then you start to see the longer they're at it that they don't really want to observe those restrictions or those principles which they are trying to tell you are quite essential. So he's living in Kharkiv and the Russians invade. And he's all about, oh, they're going to steamroll the country. They're going to be in Kiev, and Zelensky's going to be put on trial. All these elites will have their comeuppance, Victoria Nuland. It's going to blow up in their face. I never believed this because I'd studied the Russian military pretty extensively, and they're stuck in the Soviet era. They don't have a proper NCO command structure. Inter-branch coordination is horrendous. We've seen their performance in these operations in the Caucasus. It's usually very messy, which is why they got bogged down. Now, I honestly didn't think it was going to take this long, but it's definitely shown that the Ukrainian military is a little bit more competent than people expected, especially in the dissident right sphere. But despite all of that, and the evil Care Bear Zelensky puts the country under martial law, CRP does not leave. He doesn't go to Belarus or Donetsk, someplace where he's safer because of the political authorities. He doesn't get out of the country, go to Moldova or back to the US and just stream his stuff that's pro Russia. He stays in place. I don't necessarily believe he was being paid by Russia. I think that's just a slur against him. But it's not the smartest thing to do. You have to remember this is an ex communist country. And if you've met anyone that lived under communist regimes in Eastern Europe, it's no joke. It doesn't matter they've transitioned to democracy. They are still very much with the old school mentality, and they're under martial law, which means your rights don't apply. So if you're going to speak against the regime, what do you think they're going to do? Most governments, when they're, especially during war, they use it as an excuse to get rid of people who are inconvenient. This is what the Care Bears have been doing in Gaza, targeting doctors, journalists, political officials, because they know that there's no leadership and you can more easily control and dispense with a bunch of low IQ people in the population. The only response of the dissident rightists when Gonzalo gets arrested, and probably the SBU, the Ukrainians, they figured, okay, we don't have to shoot him in the back of the head, but we put him in prison and he has ailments. The guy was never really in good health. I mean, he was a cigarette smoker, for God's sake. We don't have to give him care soon enough. It's probably poorly ventilated. He'll get beaten up and he'll just die in custody. This has been done so many times before if you've studied other regimes that one would assume you'd expect it. But the dissident rights spirit, these people going around, what happened to democracy and free speech, bro? Oh, how's that human rights going, man? If you're still using that argument of trying to outflank the left by showing that they're hypocrites, you're a moron and you should have no rights and be put in a gulag, frankly, because this is exactly how it's done. Mind you, these people go around saying that Biden, Blinken, Zelensky, Nuland are all, oh, they're psychopaths. They want to wipe out whites. They want to abuse children, XYZ. And that's all true. But then you think that they're going to shrivel up into some kind of Hanna-Barbera villain when it comes down to it? Well, I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling conservatives. This is nonsensical, and it shows you how people are not operating with any degree of clarity. Now, Lira, he was released on bond, and then he did a video about how he was trying to escape, which maybe he did that for posterity. That's kind of silly because it gives them more reason to go after you. Who knows? I mean, it is a fitting conclusion to his existence. It's very theatrical in one sense. And so part of me wants to say that he had something of a death wish. You know, maybe he felt his life was played out. Maybe he was sick in other ways we don't know, and he wanted to go down with some popularity instead of just shriveling up in a nursing home. I actually respect that. I think there's too much of this obsession with, oh, if I live to be 100, well, maybe if you live a great life, but if you're just hopped up on pharmaceuticals, wow, is that great? Not necessarily. At the same time, I can't shake the feeling that he was a victim to an extent of boomer delusion, in the sense that a lot of people believe, despite the fact they say, oh, America's prestige is in decline, BRICS is taking over, that you can still waive your passport and that's a get out of jail free card. Oh, I was just trolling. I'm American, bro. A lot of these passport bros act that way. They think I can be a dumbass overseas because I'm American and no one's going to touch me. That's not how you're supposed to operate. It's stupid, and many of them are going to end up getting killed in the future. But regardless of what you think when it comes to the passport, many Americans have been killed overseas. Remember the guy in North Korea? That's no guarantee. And particularly, you've got a hostile regime to your ideas and power. So why would you bet on the fact that they're going to maintain that principle? And they say, what about the lesbian basketball player in Russia? Well, remember that that's in line with their objectives: wokeism, nonsense, black women, big booty power. So that's totally different. And they gave up a political prisoner. They gave up Nicolas Cage, right? I'm going to kidnap the Second Amendment of the United States. This is a big deal. Why are they going to waste their time on Lira when he stands against everything they believe in? Just because they want to, maintain this idea of the American passport? That's up for debate. I certainly would have gotten him out if I had the power, but obviously I don't. So again, the naivete of saying my opponents are these horrible monsters and demonic creatures who hate everyone, but they're not going to actually behave as I've said they would. You see what I'm saying? And then, similar to the people went to the hoedown, throwdown, the Capitol, some of them were saying this is a founding fathers moment. This is us performing a revolution of sorts against tyranny, and they get pepper sprayed or they get locked up, and they're like, "Oh, that's ridiculous. We were just there on tour, messing around." You see how a lot of these are right wing types. They cannot separate what they believe on the internet or what's in their mind from this is the real world. They're lucky that they didn't just get shot, to be perfectly honest. So it goes to an important piece of advice where you can imbibe as much of this red pill content or right wing, whatever you want to call it, and that's perfectly fine. Just understand there are different ways to go out. And if you believe too much in the meme, but you don't understand the consequences, that could be the case. Some people just can't handle it. You have the Roman McClays. They go postal because they're not going to have this patriarchy. It doesn't seem like it's materializing. Some of them just take the money and retire. Others, maybe like Lira, they believe in the meme enough, or perhaps again, I don't know. Maybe he wanted this to be his outcome. Maybe he wanted to go down as some freedom fighter, libertarian against Zelensky. If that's the case, it's fine. It is sad because he has kids somewhere, but I would really point this out, especially with the movement of go overseas, be an expat, be a digital nomad. That's coming back. If you want to be in another country, especially it's not a soy liberal country like France or the UK or Canada, the United States, and you want to get involved in politics, talk about politics in your country. Don't talk about politics there unless you work for an NGO, which means you're backed by another government, or you're working for, one of the, an alphabet soup agency. Do not mess around and meddle with politics because this is the consequence. Oh yeah, it's democracy. Oh, haha. No, it's not. And your ma rights, ma passport is not going to count. So make your business about teaching English or reviewing tech products or pot, whatever the hell it is. Don't make it about criticizing a regime when there's martial law and that country is being invaded. It's just a bad idea. Now, if you want to go out as some martyr, all power to you, but just be mentally ready for that.